welcome to the show. This is Jay Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice, your host today for Weekdays Live. And this is Update Friday. And boy, do we have some updates for you. It's pretty interesting what is going on. And truly, we need to push this movement because now we've got some people in Congress that are getting really upset. And we've got some real nice exposés about that for you. Elizabeth Warren is on the Warpath. So let's start with that. We're going to hear about, I'm going to bring to your attention some of these real egregious things that have occurred. Also, what the whistleblowers are actually saying. And then yesterday, Mark was talking about the England post office turning into offering banking services. I got an article on that. And some updates from around the country. So let's listen to Elizabeth Warren. Got to start there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for holding this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Stepano and Mr. Ashton, for coming here today. You know, over the last few months, Congressman Elijah Cummings and I have requested documents from your agencies regarding the basic data and the processes of the independent foreclosure review. We made 14 specific requests to you in January. And despite multiple letters back and forth and multiple meetings, you have provided only one full response, 3 partial or minimal responses, and no response to 9 of our requests. You've provided little specific information on what the review actually found, such as the number of improper foreclosures, the amount and number of inflated fees, or the extent of abusive practices by each of the mortgage servicers. So I'm hoping in this hearing to give you an opportunity to provide us with some greater clarity than you've thus far offered in our meetings and our correspondence. Thank you. You now have evidence in your files of illegal activity, I take it, for some of these banks. I get that from the evidence you've released about the charts, who's going to get paid what. So if someone believes that they have been illegally foreclosed against, will they still have a right under this settlement to bring a lawsuit against the bank?
Yes.
All right. Now, if a family wants to bring the lawsuit, you're both lawyers, would it be helpful, if you're going against one of these big banks, would it be helpful for these families to have the information about their case that's in your files? Mr.
Yes.
Ashton?
It would be helpful, obviously, to have information related to the injury. Yes, it would.
Okay. So do you plan to give the families this information? That is, those families that have been victims of illegal foreclosures, will you be giving them the information that's in your possession about how the banks illegally foreclosed against them? Mr. Ashton?
I think that's a decision that we're still considering. We haven't made a final decision yet.
So you have made a decision to protect the banks, but not a decision to tell the families who were illegally foreclosed against?
We haven't made a decision about what information we would provide to individuals. That's true, yes.
Mr. Stepano?
We're in the same position.
So I just want to make sure I get this straight. Families get pennies on the dollar in this settlement for having been the victims of illegal activities or mistakes in the bank's activities. You let the banks, and you now know individual cases where the banks violated the law, and you're not going to tell the homeowners, or at least it's not clear yet whether or not you're going to do that?
We haven't made a decision on what we're going to tell the homeowners.
You know, I just have to say, I thought this was about transparency. That's what this is all about. People want to know that their regulators are watching out for the American public, not for the banks. And the only way that we can evaluate whether or not you're doing your job is if you make some of this information publicly available. And so far, you're not doing that. And without transparency, we can't have any confidence either in your oversight or that the markets are functioning properly at all. So, and that people are going to receive proper compensation for what went wrong.
Pretty obvious. Pretty obvious. I love the way she puts it right in there. You have the information, right? Yes. This information will be helpful to the owners, right? Yes. You going to give it to them? Deer in the headlights. Let's look at a couple of other articles. I've put them specifically on the show today because of what they cover. This is an article again about that, the little video we just saw, plus all of the effort that Warren, Elizabeth, and other Congress people have put forth trying to get this information out of. This is really interesting. I've highlighted it. Sherrod Brown led the committee by asking officials to reveal the name of an independent consultant, this is one of the independent foreclosure review consultants, that regulators had admonished for shoddy work. The officials wouldn't tell him the company name, citing the confidential bank-regulator relationship. They did not rule out the possibility that maybe they'll tell him later. Brown seemed to find this response unsatisfactory. Quote, "How does disclosing the identity of an underperforming third-party entity damage the relationship with banks?" It's truly just a cover-up. You and I know that. And thankfully, we've got some people in Congress trying to work for the people. Some representatives are trying to help us out. Here's the next article, and of course these will be linked in the comments section after the show. The Democrats are pressing federal regulators for documents relating to shoddy foreclosures. And I've highlighted a specific piece in this article that I wanted to make sure you guys heard. In addition, staff from the OCC argued that these documents, and these are the documents that Elizabeth Warren just said, are you going to give them to the homeowners or not? You've got proof. You've got proof in your possession that these banks illegally foreclosed. Now, let's think about that a minute as activists. They have proof. Can we use that in court? What can we do with that? Let's think about it. So the OCC now has proof. And so Elizabeth Warren is saying you're going to give those documents to the owners. And so they're saying, oh, no. If we produced them, quote, it could be interpreted as a waiver of the OCC's authority to prevent disclosure to the public of confidential supervisory bank examination information. And in addition, we strongly believe that documents should not be withheld from any member of Congress. This is what the response is. Based on the flawed argument on the behalf of the OCC, they're making a flawed argument that illegal activity by banks is somehow a proprietary business information. And that brings us back to what we've seen earlier this week. And a couple of weeks ago, we've identified these patents. The banks have patented all of this e-commerce, securitization, where they will take even loan applications and even rejected loan applications and securitize them. I smile because it's like insane that they can do this. It's just, it's ludicrous. It's so ludicrous it makes you laugh because it is absolutely nonsensical, but they are securitizing everything. We know that. And so they're talking about this somehow as a proprietary business model. And the OCC is just bought off, lock, stock, and barrel. Now, in these articles, you're going to see that they're talking, typically, the percentage now that it's being bandied about is 30%. 30% of the foreclosures people were harmed. I beg to differ, and I want to clarify the record. And so next I want to bring your attention to the Whistleblower article. We talked about that, and I talked about some examples a couple of days ago. I'm going to relink this on today's comments, and I want you to look at page 14, 1-4. And right here, this is the overview of findings. They asked the initial 5 whistleblowers to estimate the amount of borrower harm that these folks saw, whose cases they reviewed, and what portion of that was serious harm. And they're, of course, calling all the reviewers male. They're trying to be very protective of the identities of these people, as you can imagine. So reviewer A said in their review, 90% of the people were harmed, with 30 to 40% suffering serious harm. Reviewer B said 30% were harmed, including instances of serious harm. Reviewer C said 67% were harmed on his test, and like B, he saw multiple instances of serious harm in the borrower history not captured on his test as harm. And reviewer D said 95% were harmed, with 30 to 40% suffering serious harm. And reviewer E said 100% were harmed, with 80% suffering serious harm. And this level of harm is consistent with the findings of a never published GAO report on the foreclosure reviews that the rushed settlement appeared intended to terminate. The GAO review selected a random sample of foreclosure files and found an 11% error rate. The files the reviewers saw came to, depending on the reviewer, at least 80%, and in some cases 100% from borrower requests for review through the independent foreclosure review process. One would expect to see a markedly higher level of serious problems with these files. So when you see 30%, they are just picking the bottom of the bottom. And some of these things we're going to discover, things it's going to come out, that the number that they've said, like in one of those articles I just showed you, they initially said only 700 military families were harmed by being foreclosed while they were overseas. It's completely illegal. And then later they said, oh no, whoops, it's 1,000. No, whoops, it's probably all of them. You and I both know that. And this is just the absolute outrage that we have to fight. So I wanted to bring that to your attention, and also wanted to show that they've talked about the consent orders. Elizabeth talked about that, and I just wanted to bring to your attention one more time that I have all of both the cease and desist orders and the consent judgments linked to this web page. This is Homeowners for Justice on the foreclosure defense page, and if you scroll down under the first strategy number 1, you'll see here. We recommend you always file an OCC complaint, considering the response of the OCC and watching their reactions to Elizabeth. You go, don't know if that's going to help much. However, it has been helping, and I would recommend now that everybody send the OCC the proof of your analysis of your foreclosure documents. You find any kind of fraud, false notarization, robo-signatures, forgery, send it to the OCC. And then let's tell the news media we sent it to the OCC. Let's see if they're going to disclose that information to the public. We need to send it to Elizabeth Warren too. But here are the consent judgments and the consent orders. You'll see that in April 2011, the OCC had consent orders. That means you're going to cease and desist all this false notarization and forgery stuff. They're calling it robo-signing, but you're going to stop these illegal practices. And these are the banks that agreed. These are the servicers and banks. And then, of course, they didn't. And then in 2012, here's the consent judgments for the 5 major banks. And of course, it said that you're going to stop doing all this stuff. And of course, they haven't. That is the point. They haven't. They can't. If they have to foreclose, they have to forge the documents. That is the point. So we need to pay attention to that. And before we get to our guest today, I just really wanted to bring to your attention the link so that you have it to the post office bank. I know I'm just sort of jumping subjects here real quick, but this is an update Friday, so get ready. Yesterday, Mark Armstrong was on the show with us talking about public banking and just blew me out of the water by saying that the post office in England is going to be offering banking services. Now, it's a new concept, and one of the things I like about it is that the post office would not be allowed to create credit, and they would not be allowed to gamble on Wall Street. They're just offering services. And so this is a little article Mark sent to me after the show, and you can read it, when you have a chance. But they're actually going to compete with the big banks, and I think this is a fabulous idea because as people migrate out of the big banks, then they have less risk to the confiscation of the accounts. You see, the post office is not going to require a bail-in, right? And the bail-in is when the banks confiscate your savings and checking account to recapitalize their reserves after they've gambled this all away. That's what they did in Cyprus. And we don't need that. You and I don't need that. I mean, it's already bad enough that we're fighting off to keep our homes and trying to stop foreclosures. So let's consider this very seriously. Let's talk about it. Let's mull about it. And I'm sure it's a big topic at the Public Banking Institute conference, which is coming up in June 2nd. So we're going to be talking more about that as the weeks go on. And I understand several are interested in going to the conference. That's great. I plan to go. So we'll see you there. And then, as a quick update, Mariella couldn't join us today, but you know she's been on the show the last couple of Fridays talking about this obstructionist clerk of the court and how she's getting really upset and working to, stop this obstructionist. This clerk would intentionally not tell people the information she's required to tell. And it turns out that she suddenly retired. Really interesting, isn't it? That now, with some pressure, this is what Mariella wrote, so I'm going to read it to you. She says, there's been a bit of backtracking this morning with an update that said the official story is that Mrs. Hunter abruptly resigned. The truth is somewhere between the official story and abruptly. I have heard this morning she was being investigated by the administrator of the courts, and apparently she was under pressure to get out. And it seems from what I also heard, she was feeling pressure from the task force. So let me tell you, we need to apply pressure. Sometimes there's other things going on and we don't even know. So let's keep pushing. I know sometimes it's discouraging, but we got to keep pushing. We got to push through until we actually get some settlement. And I just... whoops, I'm going to have to call my conference call again. I've got the people on hold, but somehow my phone went off. I apologize. So let me dial in and see if we can get these people, our updaters on the phone. I apologize. Gail's out of the office. I'm struggling on my own. So here we go. Let me dial in just a minute.
This access code accepted. There is one other participant in this conference. Please announce yourselves.
Oh, I'm CJ. Hey, Linda, this is CJ. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And I don't know what happened. I think maybe the conference call was on too long with no action or something, and it booted me off. And so now we've lost Lynn. Hopefully she'll call back. I'll send her an email. Can you tell us some of the news that you've got today? It's pretty exciting, pretty interesting and exciting. I've talked about, mentioned that you have some information about judges' pensions. Everybody's really interested in that because this has been swirling a long time, guys, that foreclosures benefit judges, and that's why they're wanting to foreclose. So can you explain to us what it is you've been finding out?
All right, this issue was brought up to me by a fellow researcher some time ago, and I did a cursive overview to try and find out what was going on. Didn't find anything at the time, so I decided to do that again this week. And now remember, this is about Florida. I found the Florida Bar Journal article, which talks about the cost of filing a foreclosure in our courts is having gone up from $400 to graduated payments of $400 for a $50,000 mortgage, $905 for up to $250,000, and then from $250,000 onward, $1,905. Now, immediately, a great majority of the cost is being doubled, And the remainder, I mean, this is Palm Beach County, Miami, in this area, are paying $1,905 to file the foreclosure. So where does this money go? I tracked the bill, the Florida bill, and this gets split between the Department of Revenue, the state of Florida, and the State Court Trust Fund, which pays for court expenses, including retirements. But that has to be an issue I pursue even further. However, the real zinger was a 2013, this is a current online report by Duval County Clerk of Courts, Bonnie Fusel, and in item 3, he says, effective November 3rd, 2008, all foreclosure sales are now held online pursuant to the Florida statute. Effective June 1st, 2009, pursuant to Bill 1718, the same one I was talking about that raised the fees, there is a judicial sales fee of $70 and an additional $70 to be paid by the successful bidder. This includes plaintiffs that receive the property back. So if the sale is completed, there's a judicial fee. No way to be able to account where this money is going. So the cases I know in Palm Beach County, I'm going to have each one of them individually go onto the docket and see this fee, and they're going to request a copy of front and back of the check to see where this $140 upon sale went as a judicial fee.
And Linda, this just really strikes me the same as what Charles has said, attorneys have said, and Neil Garfield, just because it's written down doesn't make it so. And so these banks are saying, they're putting it in writing that so-and-so owns the note. And yet what you really have to do is exactly what you're talking about. That is, you get the check and you look at who got paid. How either the check or like on an IRS tax form, there's what other ways can you actually identify who actually benefited? Because that is the point, right?
The next step. You're right. That's the next step. And it looks suspicious. Why wouldn't it have gone to the trust fund if it's going to pay court costs? But this is called a judicial fee that each one collects upon sale. So in other words, you're paying someone for you took it to sale to completion, you foreclosed. So guess what? Now you got to pay us for making that happen for you. That's how I see it.
And you know something? Sometimes how you see it is just really how it was. And then they just lie. They just make stuff up. We're now seeing not only are they going to make stuff up, but then they're going to cover it up. And I believe that's what the OCC is doing right now. We really look forward to having any kind of other updates. If you find proof of exactly where does that money go, that would be really interesting. I know that literally it's these kinds of things that really will catch the attention of the public, because it's cheating. They say one thing, they get paid by somebody else. Seeing how the machinations are behind the scenes, what's behind the curtain is really, really important to the people. Now, I wanted to jump. Go ahead.
In conjunction with this, someone had once said that there was a high possibility in Florida, since a bond is required, that judges were taking their bonds long time ago and just doing a cover of the bonding, and they were getting paid per foreclosure by the foreclosure mills. That's something else I'm trying to look into. I haven't been too successful, but this has rendered greater success. And another thing I'd like to share for Florida residents, this is if there's foreclosure and it goes to sale, this also brings out that a certificate of sale is issued immediately. However, the certificate of title cannot be issued within 10 days, so 10 days. But if, we know that we have a time limit to file an appeal. But if they file a notice of appeal within that first 10 days, the certificate of title cannot be released to the bank. And therefore, homeowners who have been foreclosed on cannot be evicted.
Now, okay, that would be according to law, but the banks are probably just running roughshod right over that too, right?
Because we don't know about it.
Right.
You know, appeals are filed within it might be 11 days, 12 days, notice of appeal. You
Right.
turn right around and go in and file a notice of appeal, and they can't evict you, because to get a stay of eviction once the sale has gone through, it's impossible, because they get the title. Without the title, they can't do that.
Okay, this sounds like a really cool technique. And we're looking for every technique possible to delay and stay while we work on getting a legal solution to this for the people. So
You see, you could file an objection to the sale, which there would be a hearing. It would buy you only a couple more days. However, if you file a notice of appeal and then go through on that appeal, they cannot evict you. You're not applying for a stay. There's no basis for them. If they don't have the certificate of title, they can't take the writ of possession. If they don't have the writ of possession, they can't evict you.
And so here's a quick question, and you may not know. Do you think this process technique would work for all judicial states with mortgages where they have to go to court, they have to file a lawsuit?
The time frame. There has to be a time frame from the time that the sale occurred and the title is issued.
Right.
And I'm sure that if the title isn't issued, they can't proceed. But it says if there's any kind of proceedings, yet they can't issue the certificate of title. They cannot.
All right, we're going to try to beat them at their own game. And it's truly tough. It is truly tough. These guys were wicked wizards. They knew just about everything there is to know about how to wordsmith things around and how to weave their little way through all of these little pitfalls and all of the laws and succeed. And then, of course, buy off the regulators, as we've just talked about today. So, hey, Linda, you sent me a really great document. Let's talk about that. I'm going to put it up on the screen now. This is from
For Elizabeth Warren's document?
Yep, this is one of the letters from April 10 and sent to Bernanke and Curry, who is the comptroller of the currency. Excuse me.
Now, I really haven't gotten to tear this apart yet, except that it mentions the violations and is putting in writing what she said in Congress, and giving us, here's something now we can attach to our foreclosure actions.
Well, that's what I was asking just earlier in the show. Can the people, I'm going to upload this document. It's going to be on page 1. You know this, on the home page of Homeowners for Justice. So can the people, I mean, why wouldn't they take this document and send it back to the OCC and use it in their lawsuits?
Why not? I mean, here is all the letterhead, and it's almost verbatim what she was talking about. And look, it's all about the review process and how the lack of the response.
Right.
Here's the document we can use.
I wanted to point out, too, because I was skimming I just got it just a few minutes before the show, of course, and was just skimming these statements. And here, this paragraph, they write to Bernanke and Curry, that these entities, the Fed and the OCC, have provided several salient facts. One, mortgage servicing companies spent approximately $2 billion on this review. Although more than 800,000 loan files were identified for review, only 114,000 were reviewed by independent consultants by the end of 2012. So, of course, I did the math. If you divide $2 billion with 114,000, they spent on average $17,500 per review. So the owners, it's egregious. Yesterday I showed a little news clip about that Elliot Spitzer was on, and they were yelling there that the reviewer, the independent the person doing the review, getting paid $10,000 because they were paid $250 an hour to do this review. geez, I'm sure everyone listening would have done review for $250 an hour. We would have done at least as good as these people. And the fact is they're going to send out $500 to the homeowner. So the reviewer got 10 grand, but now we know that the cost is 17.5. So that has to be the company got $7,500. The reviewer got $10,000. The owner maybe gets $500, and it's completely unrelated to anything. Whether they had harm or not, how much harm, were they foreclosed when they were still making their payments? Were they foreclosed on just when they were doing loan mods? Dual tracking. The whole thing is just truly an outrage. And I wanted to show here at the end. I want to show you the signatures because it's really cool. It's pretty powerful stuff. This is really great. It's Elizabeth Warren and Elijah E. Cummings, members of Congress, senator, that are saying, look, guys, you're covering it up and you're lying to us. So tell me, Linda, in your opinion, if people are going to use this in their cases, what do you recommend? How would they go about doing this?
Well, usually courts ask for certification of documents. That's something we have to pursue to find out if we could get a certified copy of this by probably contacting Senator Warren and Congressman Elijah Cummings to see if we can get a certified copy of this. It would bear more weight because then there's one testimony.
Okay, so let's assume they can't. Because you know that there's going to be thousands of people now wanting certified copies, and truly, do you think it's at least worth including this? Print this and include it.
Absolutely. Anytime that we're talking, like California, for instance, when you're talking to the trustees, or when we're trying to negotiate to stop the sales or get the sales date canceled. But there's issues, outstanding issues, and every state has laws that you cannot proceed against something when there are outstanding issues of fact. It's maybe worded differently, but it's all there. And that's why there's probably something similar to what I found, within California for the court statutes. I think that's where you have to look, rather than the code. Right.
This is just so incredibly egregious. I know that the the SEC, I believe, as they've tried to sue the SEC, and that was rebuffed by the judge, saying that you can't sue the agency. I'm wondering, can you sue the individuals in the agencies? Could people sue, this guy?
Well, you know what we've been finding out? We discussed this in some certain instances the last couple of days, you and I. That people, the contract may state this can be done or that can't be done, but then what does the law that governs over that contract say? Contract may say you can't do it, but the law may allow you to.
So really, we need some more research and discovery to see if it's possible to leverage for individual owners this information and this egregious cover-up by the OCC. They now have in their can they be subpoenaed? Can an owner in a lawsuit subpoena the OCC records?
Well, you're going to run into the FOIA. They'll claim FOIA rights. They'll claim that it's private information and so forth. I mean, look at what the Congresswoman is having trouble getting them to admit to anything.
I know.
You can do it, but are they going to proceed and present it? Maybe if enough do request it, maybe.
It's an interesting thought. It's really interesting. Oh my goodness. Well, as we say, there's just enough breaking news every day now to fill up a live stream show. It's just amazing the things that are happening, and we just need to keep the pressure on. So all of you viewing, and Linda and everyone, let's keep mulling over how can we best use the resources that we've got, because we all have limited resources. We just have our lives and our time and effort, and how can we best use those to affect the change and the connections that we need. And I do believe that we're on the right path. I know that a lot of contacts are putting links like this on Facebook. They're sending out emails with links to the live stream show. as we come up with new ideas, I'm trying to channel them out in the shows so that they get spread around. Anything else, please, all the viewers, let me know what you can think of that a small group of people could do to really exploit some of these potential opportunities. And Linda, again, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
Just two more things I'd like to say. This I found in the county clerk, the county clerk's office of a particular county of Florida, and it was information about foreclosure. So this might be a way to go to, rather than codes, check in your county clerk's office. And if I may, the one more piece of information that I learned from the CPA this morning was talking about the FHA, the new proposal for them to allow...
oh, that's right, the principal reduction.
Right. She gasped and said, that's not possible. And I said, what do you mean? She said, because all of these, Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie, are in a contractual agreement which prohibits any modification of the principal, and to do so then would break the contract, and then they can demand a buyback of every one of these modified loans with the modified principals by either the servicer or the originator. And it would essentially work to collapsing the system. I see it as then they would blame it on us for clamoring for principal reduction in the foreclosure.
Okay, now I want you to say that again. Okay, basically, and I'm looking up the FHA, that FHA link that we've got, that we showed, I think it was just a couple of days ago, right?
Yes.
FHA has the new principal reduction program. That's right. Geez. Okay, now the fact is...
The FHA... Right, go ahead.
Okay, the fact is these loans that they're talking about principal reduction, these were Fannie and Freddie loans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that means they are securitized, right?
Correct.
Okay, so if the FHA reduces the principal, then what happens?
Then they break their contractual agreement with the originators and the servicers, because their agreement does not allow reduction of the principal.
So,
the person who works in modifications all the time.
Okay, so why would they do this?
Well, if everyone that could started getting reduction of principal, and this causes a rush that it has to be sold back, and it causes some sort of economic dilemma, who would they blame but the people who got the modifications, who clamored for the FHA to do this, and say those deadbeat people who are in foreclosure again.
Okay, so let me just get this straight. Somebody...
An exit strategy, and shift the blame. Not shift burden of proof, shift the blame.
So why would the FHA, and I know you don't know because neither of us are involved in these decisions, so somebody at the FHA said, hey, let's offer a new principal reduction and let's insist that Fannie and Freddie loans comply, are available for that.
Then they have to follow that up with reworking the contracts.
And you're talking about the mortgage-backed security contracts.
Absolutely.
And so if they lowered the principal, that violates the pooling and servicing agreement. And so it
violates the contract with the people that they're purchasing the loans from and guaranteeing, because those are massive contracts and a certain itemization. So now.
And so who would have to buy them back?
Depends what the contract says.
So what is typical? Do you have any idea of who would have to actually buy these back if that violated the contract?
The originator or the servicer generally. And as Huntmaster just commented, the GSEs are not in the HARP program.
Oh, now this is so it's a HARP program or a HAMP program? I thought this was a HAMP program that was extended.
The one by the extension by the FHA. Thank you, Huntmaster. It's the originator buyback.
Okay, so we need to explore this more. This is like, I think, pretty significant information, and like you've said now a couple of times, one of the huge dangers, other than, you know, all this swirl of who's going to buy stuff back, is who's going to get blamed. And as usual, we can just totally expect it to be on the people that got cheated. They're the ones that are going to get blamed. So let's try to figure that out, and let's try to circumvent that blame. Let's try to figure out exactly how this works so that we can make it clear. Everybody like myself can understand it, because I'm a little lost and confused right now, and would like to have this all backed up by facts, and then we can actually, you know, as we can talk to others, we can sound like we know what we're talking about. Oh, great. Thanks, Linda. You're always just such a fountain of information. Some of it's rather scary. We appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks. You too. And now I'd like to invite on the show a disabled veteran who's been fighting to keep her home. And sorry, I don't have any picture of her yet today, but Lynn, you're on the air. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your fight, and how you can help other people?
Okay. Well, my fight has been going on since 2009, really. Been fighting first Bank of America, and then Mellon is the one who sued. But right now, I'm looking at other avenues to take. And on your subject before with Elizabeth Warren, I think the best way of FOIA is to play the game with the government. It's going to be very hard to get anywhere with a request like that. You could, well, I'm suggesting doing a subpoena to the OCC, to the independent review, for your file that was reviewed during this course of action with the independent review. More than likely, you'll get a response, and you have to respond to a subpoena. And another issue on suing an individual government worker, that's nearly impossible. They are protected. I used to be a government worker after I got out of the service. Very hard. I worked in the legal department, and it's extremely hard for you to bring anything against them. Now, you can bring it against the agency, which wouldn't be a problem, but a lot of government workers are protected in a lot of areas. So somebody did this. They submitted a subpoena. He got a response in 6 days. He discovered that his mortgage loan had been sold several times and securitized, and the lender that was foreclosing didn't have an interest in the property. The judge had a rehearing, and he won his quiet title. The homeowner did. Subpoenas are powerful, and in my opinion, they can't be ignored. And what I would do, not only subpoena them, but I would let whoever is involved with your loan CC them too, that you have done this. And I think more than likely you're going to start seeing settlements, or you're going to start seeing them contacting you and doing something along those lines. Modifications and all that is just another game that they're playing. But let me go. I did write Senator Menendez, and he responded back to me basically believing Bank of America over me. And I recently wrote him back, and I think I sent you the letter, CJ.
Right.
Basically what I said to him, I'm like, gee, I'm really glad that you're taking Bank of America's word over mine. And as a homeowner, I did everything I was supposed to in regards to trying to work something out. I don't have any debt with them. It was discharged in a bankruptcy. End of story. So now they're coming at me for trying to collect on a dead debt and all the arrears from them. They keep playing games with me, too. So what portfolio is, every day I get a letter from them. About once a week, they change the person of contact. Then now they're adding a lot of other stuff with inside these letters that I find very interesting, that all of a sudden they're trying to cover their tail. Read those letters. I'm going to tell you why. And this is very important. They're adding in there that all of a sudden, they have never before during this whole time was I given anything on the Servicemen's Civil Relief Act. Now it's in here. They've also are now listing Bank of America as the trustee. At one time they had a letter and they said I only owed the $90,000. Now I'm back to owing them the $260,000. If I don't follow through with them, they're going to file foreclosure. Well, gee, that's going to be interesting when I'm already in foreclosure.
And Lynn, let me just interject because I'm reading what a homeowner just wrote me from email. It says, "Hi CJ, well, we just completed our trial mod with Aquan, which is, a servicer. I call them an offshore dragon. And their mod offering is reduce the payment by $520 a month, but extend the loan term. They have 27 years left, so it's going to extend it to 40 years. So if we accept the mod, the new principal to pay off is $850,000 instead of $637,000. So it's jumped like, gobs of money. And if they don't accept the mod, I have another person. They're just under the gun. You have to respond to this in 14 days. And so then she's going, what should I say and do? And so I said, well, send me the paperwork. I'll look at it. And in that modification, because she had rented her bedroom once, and they now included the rental rider on this loan modification, and basically it gives the servicer the right to take over all of the leases, rent to whomever they like, charge whatever they like, and just step in. And I said, you can sign it, but I can't recommend that you sign that. And this is like between a rock and a hard place. So I think what you're saying, I'm hearing really loud and clear, and that is they're changing the terms. They're adding things in there, and it's what came up in that other whistleblower report. We talked about it a couple days ago. It's the same report. It's on page 76 or something. We read page 14 today, and that is they have a whole department with maybe 300 staff in there that are manufacturing documents to cover their ass to make it look like, oh yeah, we sent out all those letters. No, they didn't, but they just make this stuff up. And so
they certainly do.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting that about a couple of weeks ago, I got a letter from Select Portfolio stating I was $90,000 in the arrears. Now, total amount required to cure the default is $67,000. What happened to that other $30,000?
I don't mean to laugh. It's like, it's totally insane.
But I want to point out to everybody, this is something that I think can be of a great help to a lot of homeowners. Now, all along, even since the default, we have been paying our homeowners insurance. Never missed a beat. Never was, it never lapsed. Nothing. So then, all of a sudden, when I started getting information, like towards the end, when Bank of America was selling it over to Portfolio, I started seeing this thing about insurance, and I'm like, what the heck is that? Well, to me, it's force-placed insurance.
Right.
They never notified me of, which is a violation of the law.
Right.
And is usually the highest. Now, let me tell you a little secret about Bank of America and how, excuse me what I'm going to say, but scumbags that they are. What they did was when they brought Countrywide, they bought Balboa Insurance. Well, guess who they're getting the insurance from? And guess who Countrywide was? Balboa Insurance.
Of course.
And they're reinsuring a lot of these policies.
Of course.
So they were getting kickbacks.
Yes.
They were getting referrals. Now, I was, after I got done with my one life as a paralegal, I went into the insurance business. I know that even in California and in New Jersey, under law, you can only split commissions with another insurance agent. They were splitting commissions with non-insurance agents. That's a violation of the law.
Who are they splitting with?
What I'm doing is I'm going to subpoena. I just contacted my insurance company. I want everything accountable from day one, any communication, any accounting, everything involved in my file. I want a copy of it. And I'm also writing to the Commission of the New Jersey Banking, both the banking and the insurance, and putting in complaints that they violated the law by receiving commission.
Lynn, who are they splitting with?
What?
Who are they splitting the commissions with?
Any Bank of America people that would refer them to that.
Right.
You got to look at it this way. Bank of America makes $69 every time I'm late on a fee.
Yeah.
They were getting like $7,000 commission. Now times that by all the homeowners.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the game. They want to do everything themselves, pay themselves over and over at the expense of either the borrowers or the investors that they sold the loan, quote, the loans to. And so the fact is, that's why, in that whistleblower report, those folks were actually covering up. They were trying to make documents look like, instead of billing the owners, like you're talking about, this 30,000, and then it comes and goes, and who knows what that was for. And every time you press them, some numbers are different. Well, and that's because they're saying, oh, we're going to make that look like it was paid by the investors, even though it wasn't. They're just cheating.
I think this issue has to be brought up, and I think it's a lawsuit that should be brought. And let me tell you why. They were also backdating insurance. That is so illegal to backdate an insurance application.
Yeah.
I did take courses on the P&C, but I mainly did life insurance. Medicare, there is a lot of dirtball insurance agents out there, and they were really raking the seniors over.
Right.
Every year I have to go through a test to sell Medicare, any type of Medicare product. I have to, if I step out of the line once, I can lose my license and go to jail.
Right, exactly.
But these people are getting away with it, and this needs to be brought up to every insurance agency, department in every state, and file complaints with those states.
That's a very good point.
They're getting away with it. Subpoena your documents from the OCC, and they go after them. I'm already doing all my work on this. They had no right to place that forced place insurance on me.
And Lynn, forced place insurance.
When I called Allstate, they said they didn't receive payments, and that's why I contacted them. I said I want proof of that, and I have them. Now I'm gonna let them know that that this is happening, and they're not gonna get away with it. You can't force place insurance, and this was a couple of years ago that they came down with this.
Lynn, they force place insurance all the time, and this is one of the key ways they push people into default, because they will claim they didn't get paid, and often they will get the payment, but they'll put it in the slush fund and they won't credit it in time, so then the person's late. And so the same with insurance. They will just force place the insurance. The fees to the owner are they mushroom, because this insurance cost is like horrific. And the borrower goes, wait a minute, what are you doing? And starts arguing with them about that. And of course, they're just laughing all the way to the foreclosure bank, because they know that they're going to push that owner into default, and they're going to get the insurance commissions, the insurance fees, the foreclosure fees, all the late fees that they've created themselves, and they're going to, take the house from the owner and bill the investor. And it's all insurance fraud, because when they do that, the government pays off these mortgage-backed securities. Let's never forget that Bernanke right now in the Federal Reserve is spending at least $45 billion on mortgage-backed securities. And what they're doing is buying off all of these trillions of dollars of fraudulent mortgage-backed securities that the bank sold. And if you don't think I make that up, that's what Catherine Austin Fitts says, and that's linked on my website. William K. Black talks about 10,000 felonies a month.
The whole thing is that when they backdate, they're adding that on, and like you said, that they're skipping payments within escrow.
Yes.
They're not paying them on time. Of course, it's going to lapse.
Right.
But they're not going to notify you, and your insurance company might, if you've got an escrow account, they're not going to send you anything. They're going to send it to the servicer.
That's right. Because all of these accounts are
Never
impound
received
accounts.
any paperwork, and they have to send the paperwork to me that they have done this. So now you're putting the homeowner more in debt, and
That's
who
right.
knows what Countrywide, if it's in some fee within our original loan, that they had this forced place insurance. I don't think it came up overnight. I think it's included in my payment.
Well, see, these are all impound
I have
accounts.
to do a little more research on.
Most of the insurance and taxes are impound accounts. And an impound account is when the cost of the annual cost of those things, the property taxes and the insurance, are divided up into 12 payments, and they are attached to or connected with, included in the monthly payment the people pay. And the whole idea initially, and it started very legitimately, and the banks were taking good care of it and doing it right, and then now it's just completely run amok, and they've discovered how they can manipulate these impound accounts to their benefit. But an impound account is when a person makes their payment, then part of that payment, in the bookkeeping of the servicer, is supposed to go to principal, part goes to interest, part goes to the property tax impound account, and part goes to the insurance impound account. And those accounts typically are funded about 6 months in advance at close of escrow. And then as long as the owner pays, they're always about 6 months ahead. And so when the bills come due, which are typically annually, then the bank says, oh, there's a bill, and pays it and debits that account. And they've just discovered that, over time, they've figured out how they can just make a killing off of everybody and kill the people. Take the homes, kill the people.
Yeah.
And it's
Now,
very
the funny
difficult
thing
to
is, when I
straighten
did my
out.
loan, though, I opted out of an escrow account.
And you were allowed to do that?
Really create one for me. I didn't have one. I was paying my taxes and my insurance at a different time of the month because of when I got paid and everything else.
Right.
They had no right to start an escrow account on me. And
Oh, my goodness.
No, these are things I'm looking into, and they're going to be very surprised when they get sent a subpoena for all this stuff. As soon as I get the information from Allstate on where everything is at, because they are supposed to, they're trying to claim, now this is the nice little trick that they do, they're claiming that the homeowner's at fault because they never notified us of who their insurer was. Well, that's not true. It's
I
on
know.
right there, the document I receive from Allstate every year, that who is the servicer and
Right.
who it goes to.
Right, exactly. And Lynn,
So much.
the owners are always at fault. We're getting used to it, and we're going to have to just start pushing that blame back because we really aren't at fault. This is the fault of the fraudulent business plan of toxic loans, fraudulent foreclosures, cheating everybody on the planet, and getting away with it for their own benefit and gain. That is the point. And we so appreciate you sharing with us what you're doing, the understanding that you bring to the table about this insurance situation. I'm sure a lot of people are now going to view this and go, insurance, let me check, and discover that they are being cheated and manipulated that same way. And so subpoenaing the documents. Now, that has to be a court, right? You have to be in a lawsuit to subpoena?
I'm not real sure. And I
I'm not
wouldn't wanna
either.
say either way, but
Okay, I'm not sure either.
No, I think you could subpoena any record with anything you have a question with. Sending a letter and all that, and requests like that, they can be ignored. A subpoena
Right.
cannot be ignored.
Right.
I would have to check out that one, but
But I think that's only
worst
from
that
a
could happen,
judge.
they say, "Oh, well, you're not in a lawsuit," and they send it back. Well, then, that I think a threat, and they've seen that subpoena, they're going to start cooperating. That's my guess, but it's happened with other people where, we got to wake these banks up. We got to stop them for keep doing this to us.
And Lynn, I know
Did
that
nothing wrong.
I know that by the
None
time
of
this
the other homeowners did anything wrong. I never
I
told
know.
them to put my loan where they did. They did it.
I'm sure by the time the show is over, the comment sections will tell us about subpoenas. And I'm not an attorney. I mean, I don't understand all of these points. But I do know this, and I just connected with this. So Renee, Renee's been doing this. What is that? When you go into the bank yourself. Oh, shoot, I just skipped my mind. When we can, small claims, small claims court, small claims court.
Complaint in with I think this is going to be the most important thing.
Insurance.
Make sure you have all the information from your insurance company first thing. Then put the complaint in with the Department of Banking.
Yeah.
Put another complaint in with the OCC, with the
put a complaint in with the Department of Insurance.
Department of Insurance.
Yeah.
That's your trail, and that becomes, and then the Attorney General. And I think if you do that, if you don't have a lawsuit pending, I think then you can do the subpoena.
Well,
that would be my guess.
And here's something.
You've covered all your tracks, and that might be a good way to go. And then start filing lawsuits against them, because they're not going to wake up until the lawsuits are filed separately from the foreclosure. Even if you do a quiet title and all that, separate lawsuits, I believe, is the way to go with these banks for all their fraud. But the most important thing, don't wait for the senator request that information.
Right. There's no help coming. We have to help ourselves. And I connected. It's small claims court. And Renee has been talking about using small claims court as a way to build some cash for a foreclosure defense fund. And I believe the limits are like $10,000 a year or something like that. And it sounds to me as possible to tie in this insurance fiasco and fraud with a claim against the insurance company, and maybe using a small claims court for that. So that's an idea. That's a great idea. Let's try to pursue that. We'll try to cover that next week. See if there's anything in that kind of a concept that would really help the owners. Lynn, we thank you so much for sharing.
I'll stuff this week, and I'll get it over to you, and some links, and maybe getting some examples done. Right now, I got to try to get select portfolio off my case, because they're not supposed to be sending anything to me if you have a lawyer or that you're handling things. They have to go do it properly, and they're not. But
I know.
I want to get this material together. But in the meantime, everybody go to the state insurance website.
Yeah.
Let them know this is happening.
Yeah, the insurance Department of Insurance.
Insurance agents get in trouble for this every single day when they do stuff like that. I would have never split the fees with a non-insurance agent.
And here's another recommendation that just occurs to me, because people are talking about this, and we've mentioned this concept before, and that is name the people directly. Who is that agent? Pick on the agent. Pick on the company. Talk about specific people, because as we start holding the people involved in this responsible, they're going to be less likely wanting to do it. Anyway, we're going to have to go, Lynn. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
One more thing.
Okay, one more thing.
Recently, but also the title company. I'm having trouble getting my policy. I'm having trouble getting anything from them, and so I'm going after the title company now too.
And you're not the only one. I've started to hear this as we talked about the wiring instructions, and we're having people go to their title company and they're just getting a strong arm. Well, never forget that the title companies are just like the bookies for the banks. And so as they get wind of what these documents might be used for, they very well may just stiff arm and say, no, I'm not going to do it. And we may have to have more force. So we just have to keep pushing. Thanks, Lynn, for telling us how another way we can push to get...
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. You too. And guys, we're all fighting in this together, and we so appreciate you joining us today. This is Update Friday. Monday, we're going to be starting having Philip Beard on. He's going to be talking about how we can go local, because we identify the problems, but we've got to start focusing on how can we migrate over to techniques and methods and mindsets that will help save the people. talk to you this week, tomorrow, and or over the. I'll talk to you Monday, and have a good weekend. Talk to you soon. Try again.
When I was a lass, I was proud of me class, like my father and mother before me.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights,
But it's always the same old story.
the rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream.
Under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're badgered from every direction. The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax.
With nary a moment's reflection,
Where there's brass, there's muck.
and they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.
By loitering